Okay, so after I did all of that, now let's turn to something positive. I came across this tweet and paper and analysis that is just, it blew my mind in terms of what I expected, but now we have data, actual data, right? And this is about who supported abolition in England in the early part of the 19th century. So these researchers, they literally went to find the data about who supported abolition. They did it by looking at who signed anti-slavery petitions. And then they traced every person who signed to who he was, where he came from, and all of that kind of stuff. They looked at membership in abolition groups. They looked at members of parliament's voting behavior around the issue of abolition, and then looked at their economic activity. And what they show, pretty overwhelmingly, is that the biggest supporters of abolition, but by a big margin, the biggest interest group, if you will, in favor of abolishing slavery in the UK in the early in the 19th century, early 19th century, were the industrialists. You could call them the capitalists. I mean, the gentry were neither here nor there, right? The merchants, neither here nor there. Some were for, some were against. The aristocrats clearly wanted to maintain slavery. And of course, slave owners, big time wanted to maintain slavery. Industrialists, those evil capitalists. I often say capitalism eradicated slavery. Only capitalism eradicated slavery. The only system in human history eradicated slavery. If you look at the 10 most frequent occupations of the people who signed a famous 1806 Manchester anti-slavery petition, number one profession, manufacturer. Number two, textile worker. Number three, but far behind, merchant, then dealer, then warehouseman, then tailor, then joiner, then shopkeeper, then shoemaker, and at the very end, who do you think is the very end? The ones, the fewest of these 10 who signed the petition, appropriately, beautifully, attorneys. Attorneys at the very end. They look at signatures of industrialists. They find the signatures of industrialists were more likely to be at the forefront of the petition, of any petition, and usually on the first page. So the industrialists, the capitalists, the entrepreneurs, the first ones to sign the anti-slavery petition. Industrialists were the biggest donors to the anti-slavery society and were overrepresented in terms of membership. Again, Quakers were number one, right, in terms of membership. But in terms of funding, right, it's the industrialists first, Quakers second, merchants third. In terms of membership, Quakers first, industrial interests second, merchants third. So, I mean, this is beautiful stuff. If you look at the areas that were most industrialized, measured by local consumption and watermill usage, they produced a higher share of anti-slavery petitions. By every measure that they cut this, they sliced it in so many different ways. Industrialists were the number one pressure group, interest groups, pushing for abolition. That's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool data point. It doesn't change anything in life, but it's pretty cool, given just the hostility, and the association that people make between capitalism and slavery. Slavery's anti-capitalist, and it's the people who are really practicing capitalism, creating businesses, creating ventures, creating industries. They were the ones most anti-slavery. They were the ones fighting the most and putting their money towards the cause of anti-slavery. So if you don't believe in slavery and abolition movement, the abolition movement is as a heroic movement, you should recognize that it could not have existed in England, at least. I don't know what the stats are in the U.S. I guess it's very similar. Look, slavery was a phenomena of agriculture, particularly in England, of the colonies. In America, slavery was South agriculture, North industry were abolitionists. Capitalism is, in America and in the UK, it turns out, the capitalist, the activity of capitalism, the productive, the entrepreneurs, the business leaders, they were pro-abolition. And that is a great story and consistent. It's great to see somebody come up with these data points.